SiriusXM. Eric Allen alongside Quincy and Nunwa. It is still a downpour at MetLife Stadium. Jets fans going home unhappy here late this afternoon. A disappointing 10-9 loss to the Denver Broncos, Q.
Yeah, it's just from the very beginning it was a bad game. I mean, I don't think anybody expected for it to rain, but once the rain came, nobody really changed their mood, their attitude. Everybody started off really slow. That fumble really messed them up in the beginning. Nobody could get down the field on either side, and the Broncos, unfortunately, just that blitz got home all day, and that's tough, you know. And then eventually Aaron Rodgers became immobile, and then the offense couldn't do anything.
How about the end of the game, that sequence of events? The Broncos hold the Jets on downs.
Yeah.
Then the Broncos take over. They miss the field goal by Will Lutz. The Jets move down into field goal range. It's about a 49, 50-yarder from Greg Zuerlein that never looked right off the boot.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we would have won, that would have been a great roller coaster of emotions, right? But for us to go on that roller coaster and come back down and be on, you know, as sad as we are now about this loss, you know, it's really unfortunate for everybody, the staff. And I think as a player, you really have to look in the mirror and say, okay, what could we have done differently? Obviously, it rained. Obviously, you can't do anything about that. So how do you change your mentality? How do you change your mood so that you can play physical football? Because the Broncos played really physical football. I think they were hearing a lot of those notes about how this team is just not good and we're not supposed to be here, and they took that to heart.
Listen, you're not going to win many times in the National Football League if you are dependent on field goals, and that's what happened with the Jets today. Just 9 points after such a dominant effort against the New England Patriots, where they controlled the game from wire to wire. Like you were talking about early on in this game, the Jets had possession. Second play, Aaron Rodgers was sacked, and then on third down, Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, he fumbles the ball. It's a turnover, and the defense played really well early in this game. But the Broncos did just enough in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. They put a lot of pressure on these guys. I got
to help out my partner here.
Yeah, listen, that's a great job. You know, that's what we wanted to see from this team, right? Helping your next guy out. And that's one thing we didn't see on the defensive side. Although they played well in the beginning, I think one thing that I noticed was that guys weren't going in and making hard stops, right? And that's what was challenging for this offense. On the other side is that those Broncos, they were getting in on the blitz. It was making it really hard for Aaron Rodgers to make any plays. There were a couple drives where you saw him really do Aaron Rodgers things and look and say, okay, this is where I want to go, but unfortunately they just could not keep it going.
All right, so we just got word that Robert Saleh is at the podium. Let's go there now.
The penalties, what was the issues you guys were facing?
Obviously it was sloppy. A lot of pre-snap penalties. You know, they're already a good defense, and we made it easier for them with just a lack of execution. We had opportunities, first and goal from the one. We've got to be able to put it in. Didn't. Had the ball twice with a chance to win. Didn't. You know, weather witstanding, you got to play detailed. When it's sloppy outside, you've got to be detailed, and we gave up too many. We had too many self-inflicted wounds.
Robert, I think it was 15 penalties called on you guys, 13 accepted. I mean, what was going on?
A lot of them were pre-snap. I know we had a PI. I know we had the Allen had one on the celebration, but just a lot of pre-snap penalties, which is unacceptable. That's the stuff that we have to get that cleaned up. If we can't. You're always going to have in-play penalties. Those are going to happen. But the pre-snap and post-snap penalties, those are the ones that are unacceptable.
This was an issue last year, though, Robert. Last year, I think you guys were 1 or 2 in the NFL in penalties. Now this year, I think you're 4. I mean, what needs to change to clean it up?
Well, we got to figure it out. Whether or not we're good enough to handle all the or ready to handle all the cadence. Cadence had not been an issue all camp. Felt like our operation had been operating pretty good. Obviously, today it took a major step back.
Your running game, your running defense, kind of in the second half there, you couldn't really get a lot of stops there. What was going on there? What did you see without looking at film?
They ran the ball. They had a couple of plays where they did a nice job running the ball, but overall, I thought defense battled, with the exception of the one drive. I thought defense gave us every opportunity to win the football game.
Aaron looked pretty banged up by the end. They were working on his left leg before the final series, and then the final play with the incompletion of Mike. He also took another shot and was really slow getting off. Do you have an update on him?
I don't have it. He's fine. Probably just a little wear and tear from the football game.
The next to last series, the one that ended in the sack. 2 throws before that, it was like the receivers weren't even looking for the ball. Did it just seem like things were just out of sync today?
Those are things that, like I said, they'll start to get in sync. Those are things that Aaron's seeing and looking for guys to look in his direction to settle into certain zones and certain windows. But those will come along. Obviously, we want it to happen now, but we've definitely got to get in sync quicker.
Well, obviously got sacked a lot. And hit a lot. What were some of the main issues with the pass protection?
They do a good job. They're like I said before during the week, it's a top 5 defense because those guys up front are damn good. They do a good job mixing their coverages. They do a good job in the back end, gloving you up, and it just made it difficult. Made it difficult to throw the ball today, really for both sides. But obviously, it wasn't good enough today.
When you mentioned the pre-snap penalties, the mental errors, things like that, I mean, is it more disheartening that these occurred after when you guys had extra days to prepare for this game off of the Thursday night?
No, not necessarily. It doesn't matter when they come. Like I said, the operation had been good. For it to rear its ugly head at any point, whether short week, long week, it doesn't matter. It's just you never want it.
Introducing Jets Uncorked, the premium Cabernet wine and ultimate collector's item for every fan. Elevate your tailgate with the perfect edition at NewYorkJets.com/wine. Bleed green, drink red, of course. Quincy Williams, Eric Allen here at MetLife Stadium. You're watching Jets Overtime presented by SiriusXM. Disappointing outcome here for the green and white, a 10-9 loss to the Denver Broncos. Robert Saleh was just asked about that several times during his news conference that we just heard. 13 penalties for the Jets today. They actually had 15 penalties called against them, but 13 marked off.
Right, exactly. And Broncos only had 5 penalties. So when you lose that battle and you lose the red zone battle as well, 0 for 2 against 1 for 1, right, that's just a recipe for failure, recipe for disaster. And this team just could not turn it around. Multiple times they were driving down the field and penalties took them back. The one finger gun one was a very questionable one. I think that drive
Alan Lazard you're referring to.
That would have changed one of those drives, unfortunately. But then on the other side, right, you had holdings, you had pass interferences that just helped the Broncos move down the field and eventually got them to get points.
Yeah, the officials certainly weren't perfect today. On the Broncos touchdown drive, the play clock clearly reached 0 for 2 seconds probably.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't call it. They moved on. Then they benefited from a pair of Jets penalties before you had Bo Nix finding Cortland Sutton in the end zone for his first professional touchdown.
Yeah, and, I think that was one of those things. I think in the pregame I talked about the secondary being the X factor, and that's exactly why, right? You put pressure on this guy, but he's already faced pressure. Against the Buccaneers, he faced multiple guys coming in his face, getting in his face and blitzing him, and he still was able to make those plays. Now this week he was able to still make the plays that he needs to make. The secondary had to come up big, no penalties, and this was a perfect time for them to do that when it's raining, right? It's harder for a receiver to make the plays that they want to make. So as a defender, you don't have to grab because he's not really going to be as confident in catching the ball. And they just couldn't come up big for this team at that time.
There were opportunities for the Jets to really seize control. You think about Quincy Williams with that big hit in the first quarter. At the end of the first quarter, Michael Carter's second recovers for the defense. The Jets are in plus territory. Yeah. Then Aaron Rodgers gets the Jets to a 1st and goal at the 1 after a pass interference penalty, and the Jets had to settle for a Greg Zuerlein field goal there.
Yeah, and I think at that point there, I think the Jets were feeling really confident in their run game, right? They had, I think it was like 2 or 3 straight runs to Breece Hall, and I think at some point, you got to switch it up. I think today they were a little bit more vanilla in the play calling.
Okay.
In previous weeks, I felt very comfortable with them, or at least last week, I felt very comfortable with what they were doing. Multiple different sets, right? They had the 2 running back sets. They had a set where they would motion Rucker to the backfield, and then he would go out and block. This week, there was no more wrinkles in the offense that kind of created a little bit more challenges for this defense.
All right, one of the better Jets today and through 4 games has been Quincy Williams. Here's Caroline with him right now.
Here with Quincy Williams. Quincy, obviously not the result that you guys wanted. What did you think that this team struggled with today?
Elements. We're going to say the elements first off. But, I mean, it ain't really no excuse. The biggest thing, pre-snap penalties, we kind of hurt ourselves. That was the main thing. And then also on defense, towards the end, the two-back runs, the biggest thing is like finishing, so being disciplined in our two-back runs, and then also just getting them down also. So I felt like towards the end, the defense, we kind of like got undisciplined because we was just too excited, moving fast and things. So at the end of the day, it's all about finishing. My philosophy is we should be able to win the game 3-0. So then another thing, getting turnovers, man, getting the offense the ball more. So anytime we get a loss, bro, I'm always harp on like what the defense did first. I mean, what I did first and what I can be better at, and then what did we do collectively as a defense? You feel me?
What did about this defensive performance? Obviously, you said like tackling in the run game and kind of letting that get out of hand. But what did you like about it leading up to that?
Oh, the excitement, man. Our biggest thing this week was starting fast. The last couple of games, we was harping on not starting fast. Talked about it during the week. I felt like we started fast this week. The biggest thing now is just finishing, being disciplined, not letting our highs get too highs and our lows get too low, just coming back in, sudden changes and things.
What was Coach Saleh's message to the team in the locker room?
Discipline. That's the main thing. Discipline as far as like the pre-snap penalties, period. Discipline as far as like being on our keys, offense, defense, and special teams. Then being disciplined in the run, finishing as a defense also.
In your eyes, what is the next step that you guys have to take, whether it's as a team or just as a defense, before you head overseas to take on the Vikings?
Discipline and finish. That's the main thing, and not beating ourselves, putting ourselves in a position where we're on even plays with another team, not us behind the 8-ball, because we put ourselves there.
Awesome. Appreciate the time, Quincy.
Thanks for having me.
It's Sunday Morning Football live from London. Watch quarterback Aaron Rodgers and your New York Jets take on the Minnesota Vikings at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next Sunday, October 6th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on NFL Network and streaming on NFL Plus. Subscription required for NFL Plus. Terms and conditions do apply. It's not going to get any easier for the Jets when they take that trip to London, because you're talking about a Vikings team that is now 4-0, and they got to be feeling quite good about themselves after taking they really took the Green Bay Packers to the woodshed today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those guys are on a roll, right? Sam Darnold's really wheeling and dealing. It's a surprise for a lot of people, and I think that it's going to be a challenge for this team. I think for him, he's not only a mobile quarterback, but he has a big arm, right? So that's going to be something that they're going to have to watch out for. Now, maybe they may not have the elements out there, right? You heard Quincy Williams say the elements. I think regardless, though, there was a hurricane in the area. There should have been some kind of idea like, hey, listen, maybe it's going to rain. It's tough, because I got dressed thinking that it wasn't going to rain today. It ended up raining. It rained on my white shoes. It's tough for me, too.
Your white shoes are going to make a comeback. Don't worry about that.
Jets.
Okay, so what happened to the Jets' third down offense coming into this game? Number one in the National Football League, converting about 57% of the time.
Right.
Today, against the Denver Broncos, 4-17. I thought the defense did its job. When you're talking about the Jets, they were 3-14. How much do you attribute to the weather? How much do you attribute to poor execution? Because what these guys are talking about is a lot of discipline issues for the Jets when you're speaking to penalties.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I put myself in those shoes of a foreign player, the weather plays a huge part. And I hate to be the one to admit that, but I think, especially in my position, it's very tough. I don't know. I can't speak for other positions, but as a receiver, it's very challenging. It changes your whole mentality. You saw Garrett Wilson had no gloves, then he had gloves on, right? Just even having to think about that mind game, right? You're juggling so many things. It takes you out of your game. So, that's a huge part. Now, as far as discipline goes, right, they still got to find a way to stay disciplined. And that's one thing they just were not today. I mean, offsides, the rain is not stopping that, right? False start, the rain is not affecting that, right? Holding, all those different things. The rain does not affect those penalties. And so regardless of whatever is going on around you, you still got to make sure you're on your A game.
All right, so what surprised me, and we're going to get to grades later, I think, but what surprised me here, going into this game, the Broncos' leading rusher was Bo Nix. Well, today, Bo Nix didn't rush for many yards at all. But they finished with 126 yards on the ground, 31 attempts, 4.1 yards per carry. You flip it to the Jets side of the ball, 64 yards on 23 carries, and that's 2.6 yards per rush, I believe. It's actually 2.8 yards per rush, and that's with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen in the backfield.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the Broncos really found something going there, especially in that third, fourth quarter. I think that's when they really started rolling. They figured out where they wanted to go. And I think certain guys have to figure out, okay, how am I going to affect the run game, right? I think that there's some disciplined things in there, like, okay, how can I attack this a little bit better? That guys have to really watch the film and say, okay, I didn't show up on my best in this game. I didn't show up on my best in this area, right? Because otherwise, teams are going to continue to attack those areas. Teams are going to continue to be in those positions because they see that, right? The film never lies. The eye in the sky never lies. That's what we understand as a player. And so when you're out there, you got to know that, right? You cannot go out there and make those mistakes.
Yeah, defensively, the Jets, again, were sound on third down. And Bo Nix was really not hurting them through the air for the most part of this game. If we're going to take a look at a couple plays as far as those third down stops. And the Jets defense was really buzzing in that first half. I kind of thought once we got later in the ball game, the Broncos got better at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I think honestly it's felt a little bit like last year, and I hate to say that, right? But I think, not even just the rain, right? Yep. Last year they had so many rainy home games. This felt like that all over again. And I think those guys kind of slipped back into that mind frame. Oh, man, the offense isn't playing well. Defensively, we're going to give up a little bit more. And, the offense just couldn't pick up the slack, and that's what was going on last year. They have to figure out a way to make that change because this is not last year's Jets, and you don't want to keep living up same old Jets, right? This is a new team. We've seen that in these last 3 weeks. This week, though, they took a step back. It's important to figure out what they need to do so they can step forward next week.
Yeah, the Jets are 2-2 after 4 games. Everybody was circling this one on their calendar and saying, here's an opportunity for you to go 3-1 before you go to London and face the Vikings. Then you have a Monday night game back here against the Buffalo Bills before a Sunday night trip to the Steelers, and you'll be playing in Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers, we're going to hear from him shortly. He took a number of big hits out there today. The past game, it had its moments late in the first half. There were some other times where I thought after Denver took that lead and Rodgers led the Jets right back down their field, he was getting in a groove, but they were unable to control that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
The momentum it would come in spurts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one of the big issues, right? Is that they could not continue to get things moving, and that's hard as a team. Like if you're not able to move the ball, you're not able to take consistent drives, then how are you supposed to really make anything happen for your team?
Yep. Aaron Rodgers today, we will get his stats coming up. But, again, the Jets held to 3 Greg Zuerlein field goals and unable to get into the end zone. Denver was kept off the scoreboard in that first half, but they take the lead in the third quarter. The Jets counter with the field goal. What did you make of the sequence of events? So Quincy and I, just to give you guys some background, we're in the tunnel at the end of the game.
Yeah.
We're in the freight elevator on the way down with 5 minutes left. So we see the Jets have that one possession where they have to turn it over on downs where Rodgers does not see the blitzer. The free blitzer comes. They take over. Then after that point, they missed the field goal. The defense holds. You call all your timeouts, and then the Jets move down the field. And we're not able to get into a range where you're feeling quite comfortable, 15, 20-yard line where you can take, okay, maybe it's a 32-yard field goal, maybe it's a 38-yard field goal. Instead, you're sending Zuerlein out here trying to hit a field goal in these elements, 49, 50 yards.
Yeah, I think going forward, I think the biggest thing for this Jets offense is figuring out other ways to kind of beat the man coverage, right? Like the blitzers are going to come now. People are going to test Aaron Rodgers' Achilles. This is the second week in a row where they've gotten blitzed. They want to see how well you can move, and they want to see how well you're going to be able to read what's going on, right? They put everybody at the line. Okay, is it zone or is it man? Because we know you're going to put everything on your hands. And ultimately, I think they got to kind of start creating more of a team effort. It shouldn't be, in my opinion, it doesn't need to be an Aaron Rodgers show every time, right? We don't need him to be Superman, right? Let's start getting into some different formations. Let's start creating some plays that can kind of get guys open, because getting everybody out and then figuring out where to throw the ball every time, that's going to kind of get a lot more challenging for Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, we're going to look at that game summary right now from MetLife Stadium. The Jets fall to the Broncos. The final score is 10-9. Greg Zuerlein with a pair of first-half field goals, and the Jets went ahead 6-0. Bo Nix's first professional touchdown pass goes to Cortland Sutton in the back of the end zone. The Jets answer with a Zuerlein field goal, but Will Lutz finishes off the scoring here. Both teams are now 2-2 after 4 games. Getting back to Rodgers, sacked 5 times today.
Yeah.
Now, we knew the Broncos were going to bring pressure. They certainly did.
Yep.
The Jets against the Patriots, 7 sacks.
Yeah.
Today against Bo Nix, 0 sacks.
Yeah, and I feel like they're going to have to look at that because there were some plays where he stepped out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage. I know they added sacks previously, but overall, Bo Nix does not get sacked a lot. Like
No.
when you look at his stats for the season, he has not been sacked many times. They do protect for him, and he's able to move around and get out of those bad sticky situations. So offensively, right? Like I said before, it's really hard for you to keep having Aaron Rodgers go back there and figure out where he wants to go. Now, ultimately, I think we want Aaron Rodgers to continue to do that, but there's other ways where we can kind of create ways for these guys to get open, mixing things up so guys can get open and maybe some crossers, different things. Now, I think they're going to go back in the drawing board and figure that out. But, today they just did not have the game plan to beat this man coverage with the blitz.
All right, Jets Nation, we got you covered across the board. Jets game day airs every Sunday at 7:30 a.m. 1JD Films Saturday nights at 11:35. And then Jets late night, you'll be able to check that out tonight. That's at 11:35. Tune in to CBS New York all season long. We are rolling on here at a wet MetLife Stadium. The Jets fall to the Denver Broncos by a 10-9 score. Rodgers, his receivers, much talk before this game. Hey, how can you get Garrett Wilson more involved?
Yeah.
And you saw some flashes from Lazard again. You saw some flashes from Mike Williams, of course. But again, Jets had difficulty getting Garrett involved again.
Yeah, it's tough, man. There were some opportunities there, though. And that's the worst thing about this as a receiver is that you beat the guy in front of you. But the stats are going to say he held you for, what was his stat line? 5 for 41, but I'm sure he was only on Surtain for like maybe 2 of those catches. So it looks like Surtain had a great game on him. So as a receiver, it's tough. But I think ultimately these guys were getting open. It's just tough when you have so many things in your face.
Yeah, I just go back to missed opportunities in this game where the Jets, you're in plus territory. You have a first and goal at the 1. In the National Football League, if you have a first and goal at the 1-yard line, in these kind of conditions, you have to find a way to get 6 on the board.
Absolutely.
And you wonder, we always talk about a rhythm of a game. You wonder how everything changes if the Jets ever had a double-digit lead against a rookie quarterback making his 4th start in the National Football League.
Yeah, not even just that, but then you guys talk about the crowd, right?
Yeah.
The crowd comes into play. The fans were just not as entertained, right? It's raining. The offense isn't making any plays. So now you take that factor out of the game. It's easier for a young quarterback because he's not hearing that, right? But if the Jets can score touchdowns, now you're getting that fans. Now fans want to sit in the stands. They want to watch. They want to cheer.
All right, let's get to our report cards right now. We're going to start with you. You tend to be a very generous, a very favorable grader, but
yeah.
Generous,
to be honest with you,
as I like to say.
Yeah, I wanted to be generous even today. I think these grades are generous, if I'm being honest, right? I think I gave the offense a C-. They just were not getting anything going. C is average, right? So C- is below average, and that's kind of what it was. You had a turnover. You had I don't even know how many offensive penalties they had, but when Tyron Smith, your Hall of Fame left tackle, is also a false start, and that means just the offense as a whole is just off, right? Nobody can get anything going. I think Breece Hall also had a false start. So just across the board, guys were not playing very well, and so that then lowers your grade. If you could have even just scored a touchdown, it would have been better.
Right here. I want C- as well, I think. I don't know if we're going to be able to punch that one up. But listen, bottom line, the Jets had 248 yards. They averaged 3.5 yards per play. And again, Aaron Rodgers was sacked 5 times today. You finished with the 3 field goals. And then I thought it was a tone setter for what was to come, the early turnover. Yeah. You've been protecting the football so well.
Right.
And again, you still had an opportunity to win this game multiple times down the stretch, and they were just unable to give Zuerlein a really good look at it late.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, flip it to the defensive side of the ball.
So defense, I gave them a C minus. I probably could have given them a C. I think it was an average test out there. I think the elements really played a big part in order for them to not see Bo Nix make some of those passes that he made last week. And then, I think overall they just couldn't get those stops down the field. Down the stretch. So I gave them a C minus.
Listen, I was more so in the B range. I think I gave them a B minus. Listen, the Denver Broncos had 12 first downs. They went 3 of 14 on third down. They had 56 total plays, 186 yards. Bo Nix was 12 of 25 for 60 net yards. You had the early takeaway. You gave your offense another opportunity with that hold after Rodgers was sacked. Yes, Denver got things going on the ground. That's somewhat of a concern moving forward. The Jets have to be better. The rush defense here against the Minnesota Vikings. But all in all, I really can't fault the defense too much. 10 points.
I feel you.
All right, special teams.
Special teams, I gave him a C. That end missed field goal was a huge heartbreaker there. Then you had another penalty earlier in the game with I forgot who it was, but yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I believe that was Irv Charles.
Yes, exactly.
So I want C as well. Unfortunately, this would have been messed by everything if he hit the field goal
right.
at the end. I thought Xavier Gibson had a couple cleanly fielded returns here in the tough conditions. And the penalty is tough as well. But let's go to the podium right now. Here is quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
What do you attribute all the pre-snap penalties to today?
I don't know. We do all the stuff that we did today. We do it every day in practice. We change cadences every walkthrough. So I'm not sure. That was way out of character for us.
On the last series, the last two throws, the receivers either weren't looking. You looked frustrated at that point. What happened?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the film. But yeah, weren't really on the same page.
The cadence specifically, Robert said that might be something you guys have to dial back a little bit. Is that something you think could potentially help the situation?
It's one way to do it. The other way is hold them accountable. We haven't had an issue. We've had one false start. Morgan had one false start, I believe, until this. So, it's been a weapon. We use it every day in practice. We don't, we rarely have a false start. And to have, 5 today, it seemed like, 4 or 5. Yeah, it seems like an outlier. I don't know if we need to make mass changes based on, kind of an outlier game.
It seemed like they brought a lot of pressure starting from the very first play. Did that guy surprise you at all? What was the issue to pick up there?
Well, the first play I probably should have thrown out to Allen on the right. All the other ones, we either had, we had a protection call that we thought was good enough to pick it up, or we got the ball out.
You were multiple times, it looked like, you were frustrated. You saw it with your body language. Is that just something is that because you believe you had the plays that were there and you guys just weren't making the mental errors and things of that nature, or something else?
Yeah, I think we were kind of killing ourselves. I can't say I had a spectacular game. I missed some throws. The weather sucked, but so did some of my throws. So, we had some chances, but, way too many mental mistakes, too many poor throws, and then we just missed some easy stuff, some protection stuff that should have been easy, some route adjustment stuff that should have been easy. We're just, our focus just wasn't as sharp as it's been the first 3 weeks.
Aaron, you had a couple, the second to last series, I think, where Garrett didn't look for a pass, and I think X, same thing. Is that what's going on there? Is that chemistry not there yet at times, or?
I was just not on the same page on those 2 plays.
Aaron, you kind of referenced Wednesday. People were saying your praises as a team after the Patriots game. Did you sense any kind of letdown?
No,
this
I
week,
didn't. No, not at all. No, that's a really good defense. But when your defense holds them to 10, you got to win the game 100% of the time. So that's on the offense. It's on me. Not good enough.
You said you were a little banged up. Is that a knee? Does it look like you were stretching or flexing? knee?
Yeah, I mean, I got some stuff with both legs, so get in the hot tub here in a little bit.
The goal line situation after the PI, how difficult is that to come away with nothing, and then you're 4th and 1, and you have one of those pre-snap penalties that takes you out of it, really?
Yeah, I mean, we had 3 chances. We had 3 good calls. Didn't execute any of them. Then jumped off sides and then kicked the field goal. You got to get 7 in this league to win. We had multiple opportunities to go up 2 scores, didn't do it, and that's why we lost.
You are watching Jets Overtime, presented by Sirius XM. Eric Allen, alongside Quincy Williams here at MetLife Stadium. The New York Jets fall to 2-2 on the year with a 10-9 loss to the Denver Broncos. Coming up, Quincy, you got the trip to London. You're facing the undefeated Vikings over there in the UK. That's before the Buffalo Bills, who've owned the AFC East the last 4 years, are coming to your place, Monday Night Football, and then it's a short week again against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know what ended up happening with the Steelers today against the Indianapolis Colts, but they started the year with a 3-0 record, and those teams combined entering Sunday 9-0 this year.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. Today was a tough game for these Jets. I think ultimately the Denver Broncos are a good team. They have a good defense. And so, I think they just kind of look forward to the Vikings, and make sure that they fix these mistakes.
Yeah, too many mistakes for the Jets to overcome today. Clearly a frustrated Aaron Rodgers, but a lot of season and a lot of football left for Quincy Williams and a cast of thousands here at MetLife Stadium. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Keeps